session. It is Wednesday at 5 p.m., July 22nd. If you would please rise with me and salute our flag with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you, Curry County, everyone, for showing up in a packed house here of 7 people. So much for evening meetings. We have one in the hall. Oh, okay.
But we can observe social distancing.
All right, so do we have a line of duty casualty report, Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing this time. We're going on about 18 months on this now. The last report was July 1st. Sad to report, officers down. Went from 135 up to 135, excuse me. 2019, the entire year was 147, so that's up 21 in 3 weeks. The military deaths, sad to report, up 3, now at 21. For 2019 was 35. Firefighters, interesting number. They're up 4 to 44. Sometimes we think that firefighting is not as hazardous as police work, but they're extended out there and exposed. I'd like to offer, if you would, Mr. Chair, one more note. There have been 4,100 officers injured since the murder of George Floyd, and so that calls for a little extra with it throughout the United States. 4,100 injured, and a few of those killed. So, moment of silence would be much appreciated. Thank you, Board.
All right. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Mr. Schmelzer?
Yeah, I just have one. The governor came out with another press release today regarding COVID and some restrictions. So I was just hoping we could quick have the emergency management director just give a little report before we get into presentations. And then let him go on his way, if that's okay. It'll just take a couple minutes.
Okay. So you want that from in front of 5A?
Yes, if we can.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Chair Pash. I've been working with the 5 county regions, Southwest Oregon, as you know, Douglas, Coos, Curry, Jackson, Josephine. Commissioner Cribbins from Coos County came out with a letter that basically is challenging the governor that all the counties have signed on, and it relates to the potential of additional restrictions coming. I saw the governor's press release today, or news release, I'm sorry, and my worst fears did not come to pass, but it's how it would affect our businesses, and I need to be able to see Douglas County. I think is going to complete it with their board of 3 commissioners tomorrow. The other counties have signed on. I need permission to sign this. I put it on your desk. I think I might have put one at your door earlier today, but I would need permission to sign that. I can read that later if time permits. Would be glad to, Mr. Chair. It's not a real long letter.
Okay.
But it's very well done, in my view.
All right. Any other amendments?
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, Council.
Thank you. So we've got executive sessions listed to continue or to consider employment of a public officer. We've also got, I thought, labor negotiations, that's D, and then F, exempt attorney-client privilege information, H, legal rights and duties, current litigation. And then I wanted to add, I think I need to address the board on something called E, which is real property transactions. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that for the board in exec session today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further? Nothing further. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye,
Motion
JJ.
carried unanimously.
All right, so we're going to move on to 4 public comments. Mr. Barnes, you're going to pass? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Lou, I'm sorry. You are right? Because they didn't have it in front.
My battery might go at any moment. I'm reading it from here because I didn't know you had a meeting tonight.
We're going to buy you a new phone charger.
You promised
We
me that
should
a
do
while
that.
ago, okay. So, I'm going to read most of this from here. I'm Mary Rowe. With respect to the workshop that you had this afternoon, part of the parking problem on public lands is due to homeless people who have no place to stay at night in their vehicles and motorhomes. As you decided today, all jurisdictions must work together. The City of Brookings was not at your workshop today. Much of the problem is in South County. Mayor Pieper suggested a while ago that the churches allow people to park there. They were all asked but said no. I believe that more structure would need to be in place for them to say yes. On July 18th, I put a post on a Facebook site suggesting such structure. I had hoped to present it to the Brookings City Council Monday, but was denied the right to make a public comment, even to have it read in violation of the ADA. I will read it to you now. I'm sorry, now I have to go back to the freaking... The Brookings police have been overwhelmed by homelessness and accordingly asked for help for years. Homeless people in vehicles need a place to park at night. The Brookings police want to hire a community outreach officer. Great. Diana Cooper is a healthcare worker who works with homeless people. Homeless people in other cities have been provided with a place to park at night. This keeps people safe and protects outlying areas from being ruined. The City of Eugene partners with churches and a nonprofit. The city pays for dumpsters and porta potties. The churches each provide a small amount of space for parking. The nonprofit oversees the participants. We could do something similar in Brookings as a pilot project. The city would provide police security and dumpsters and porta potties. Diana could take temps and monitor for drug and alcohol abuse along with a community outreach police officer. Savvy volunteers could assist where, with such a plan, maybe some churches would change their mind and step up. If not, did I hear that the state parks might want to give Brookings the Harris Beach day use area? Mayor Jake and a small task force could possibly pull this off by winter. Insurance would, of course, be a factor. So there's interest in Brookings, but the churches are not going to allow people to just park there without some sort of security oversight, and they are going to get a community outreach officer, which is just wonderful. I think I'm not using the exact right term there. I'm sorry, I have short-term memory loss. But you understand what I'm saying, the kind of officer that they're going to get, and I think that they could work something out, and that would help.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Counsel?
you.
Ms. Rowe, you left me a voicemail message this afternoon about the rights or the ability of public comments such as you just made, and I think at the beginning of your comments, you let us know that the City of Brookings declined to read your comments into the records. You asked me for...
Or to allow me to speak.
Right, and so you asked me questions about that. I technically can't give you legal advice, but I know I've experienced your intellect before. I think if you did a search online of Oregon public meetings laws and the right to address your elected officials, you might find some answers on your own there.
Well, I can't go online, but I most certainly will pursue it, and thank you so much for caring about the ADA and, at the county level. Thank
Okay,
you so much.
sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mary,
Commissioner Boyce?
Ms. Rowe, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, one exception on the churches, that was the Trinity Church and Lutheran, and they're absolutely overwhelmed, is that correct, in Brookings?
I think that Diana asked again after I gave the information about providing some structure and partnering with a nonprofit and the city and the churches all together, and there being some security. And one church has finally said that they would be willing to do it.
Great.
So,
Okay.
but you can't just have a bunch of people just park. You can't leave it up to the church, for God's sake. I'm sorry. that's too much for them. There's all kinds of things that can happen.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
All right, next we're going to move on to presentations. Mr. Dumar?
Well, good afternoon. Jeremy Dumar, Curry County Emergency Manager. So I did want to touch on the governor's press conference today. She did issue some additional requirements as we are seeing a steady rise in positive COVID-19 cases. First off, she's including now in her mask requirements that kids ages 5 and older also wear face coverings similar to how adults will. So indoor public places, outdoors where social distancing cannot be effected, social distancing of 6 feet or more. Kids that are ages 2 to 5 are recommended to wear face coverings. That's understandably a challenge for some parents, myself included.
I want to see that, yeah.
What a
Like I said, it's a
challenge.
challenge. I hope we don't go to required at that point. Indoor gatherings are reduced for all parts of the state, whereas the maximum was 250 for a gathering. Now it's reduced down to 100. Restaurants and bars in all parts of the state that had been allowed to stay open until midnight are now required as of Friday, and all these are as of Friday, required to shut down at 10 p.m. instead of midnight. The other thing that was quite notable in her press conference is she's directing her team, the Oregon Health Authority, to evaluate the process for restricting tourist travel into Oregon. This would be from states with higher infection rates, and she's also looking at whether or not requiring mandatory quarantine for people coming here from those hot spots would be effective. So that may come down soon, as a heads up. That was in her press conference. I do want to highlight some good things. We have received quite a few KN95 face coverings, such as what I'm wearing right now. To date, and with the assistance of Summer Madison and Economic Development, we have distributed 20,280 of these face coverings to our local businesses for assistance in complying with the governor's mandates. I still have over 8,000 of these available for business, and if any business needs these in aid of their compliance with the governor's mandate, myself, Summer Madison, we're more than happy to provide those.
Is that free of charge?
No charge.
Thank you.
And if it's needed to be delivered, I know Summer, myself, we've been going to Brookings, Port Orford, and making those deliveries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dumar, got a question?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing to add to that, yesterday, 7 deaths in one day matches the daily record of any time since this began. So in the very beginning, those that were saying that this is not that serious, overblown, we see we're dealing with here. And so that really comes back, Mr. Chair, to the permission I need from the 5 boards. I'll have a report too, certainly related commissioners' comments at the end of the day. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Did the governor bring to light any information on how many COVID cases have turned positive during the riots and everything up there?
Not to my recollection of the conference, no.
Has she
tends to avoid.
Has she stopped, has she sent her police out to stop the rioting in the area to prevent further COVID infection as opposed, like, I've seen 5-year-olds up there as well. We see all these people up there rioting and having all these mass gatherings shoulder to shoulder. Did she in her phone and her message today address that to the public on how she plans to deal with that?
I need to be very careful in my comments. What I recall of the press conference is that the governor was very disappointed with the Trump administration for sending in federal officers, and is on board with the state attorney general in filing a lawsuit against the federal government for using those officers. She did not, in my recollection of the press conference, make any mention of using police to stop the riots. I do know that the Portland City Mayor is also publicly going to be a part of the protest tonight in Portland.
Well, it's just that, my constituents, the people that I speak to in the county, have grave concerns about, the transference of this disease by allowing these people in these tight groups to be able to do what they do. When she asks restaurants and bars not to be able to serve people, we can't have people, in some instances in churches, praying together in enclosed environments until just recently, but we allow hundreds and sometimes thousands of people to gather in public with no proper protection, and she does nothing about that. I was just kind of wondering if she talked about that in the meeting, so thank you very much.
The comments are what I do recall of the press conference. Yeah,
Thank you.
So I have a question. Jeremy, I have a question. So you said that you and Summer have distributed almost 21,000 masks to the
Correct.
businesses. Does that number include the ones that were distributed to all the farmers, or is that
No.
on top of it?
that's
So
in addition. And we do have more coming from the state. The state is pushing down, it's not our request, they're given to us, these masks. So I have 8,000 in my office, I have another 4,000 coming. I don't have a timetable on that. The last time we had a push, it was 3 weeks. So another 2 weeks from today, I would have another 4,000.
Do you know how many went out to the farmers?
I don't remember the number offhand.
Okay.
I want
A
to say
couple thousand, though, wasn't it?
Summer knows.
it was somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember it offhand.
I know my ranch got a couple boxes.
Well, you definitely got a lot of masks out there.
Yes,
And to help
yes,
people.
we have a lot of face coverings.
Face coverings.
Yes, face coverings.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to presentation A for rural Oregon and Metro Oregon, understanding the gaps, differences, and issues. Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to give a quick shout out regarding masks to Josh Stout, who was ridiculed here on March 3rd for maybe making $1 million. His company's become the biggest supplier in Oregon of masks. Now, that may have changed in the last week or so, but he and his people worked feverishly to supply this state. He's a combat veteran from both Iraq and Afghanistan, and I just hold him, I think this board holds him in very high regard. Thank you. I wanted to have a little fun with this. I said in the agenda routing slip that I'm certainly no expert, but there is a divide in Oregon, and you hear the concept of the Idaho border, you hear the Jefferson State. You know, on the peripheral, it looks like these folks are kind of out there, but they're obviously very frustrated. And, you know, I'm open, we're open. I think the state, all the citizens, regardless of political philosophy, philosophical differences, really need to come together in our state. You know, obviously I'm stating the obvious, but there's a magazine, go right here, I think. And if we go here,
You reduce the size down on the minus over here. See in the middle of the page?
right there.
Nope. Up in the top. See the little hand in the middle up there? Right there. Now the next one next to it is the minus. Click that and it'll reduce the size. There you go. See the whole page.
Thank you. I mean, the caption of this magazine speaks for itself. You know, I wrote the editor and was a little late getting to her, but wanted to get, perhaps even have her call in today. So this is more of a discussion than a presentation. I don't want to take too long, Mr. Chair, but I think the concept is, how do we bring the two divided parts of Oregon together? The more I get to know the Eastern Oregon commissioners, the more I appreciate some of the issues that they're dealing with. But like I say, the caption speaks for itself here. So we'll go right here. First time in, 70 years we haven't had our county fair. Pretty tough on people. Some folks, some of our citizens live for that fair, as you know, and we've all been very supportive of the work there and the tradition, the uniqueness. Best little fair in the world, or in the state, we believe. And yeah, what better to describe the uniqueness here than the Ferris wheel looking out over the ocean, the Great Pacific Ocean. So we're, any citizens might be watching, look for our fair for 2021 to come roaring back, and we're pretty hopeful on that. So I'm not saying that Metro Oregon counties don't have fairs and and those kind of gatherings and events. But ours is special. So just a reminder. Some of the down parts of what small counties, rural counties are dealing with, as you know, or likely know, grizzly bear has been reintroduced back in Oregon about 15 years ago, especially in the northeastern part, Umatilla County, that general area. And, you know, there's going to be a movement in Curry County to try and, it may be 10 months, maybe 20 years, to show the people of to show our citizens that they are native to Southern Oregon. I believe that strongly not to be true whatsoever, because I learned this in biology class, the famous black bear, Ursus americanus is the scientific name. That's the only scientific name I know for any of our local critters, but if that were true, we wouldn't have any black bears, because they can't coexist with the grizzly bear. So not native, but yet the Eastern Oregon people are warning us they're coming this way. They're hurting our ranchers. They're ruthless killers. It's like the wolves. You know, they moved out of Canada where it's 20 degrees warmer, and they absolutely thrive in Idaho. And so as they move, the wolves also move towards Oregon. It's an issue, so we need to be aware. And the federal government is oftentimes not taking the right approach to protect rural Oregon, especially our ranchers and farmers. You know, we've all been looking at how do we find healthcare providers, how do we compete with the other rural areas, for that matter, how do we compete with the metropolitan areas to attract the people that want to come and live here. And we're aware of that. We take the competition seriously. We want to recruit well. We want to find the doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners, all those people. This is an article that was a year ago in our local Ruralite. And that's accessible if anybody's interested in that, and I can sure get it to you. And this is the article. Of course, I won't read it, but rural communities are struggling to get their health care to the highest level they possibly can. So I just thought the public might have a little bit of an appreciation for this, and if any of you out there listening have a family member that's a doctor or nurse, we can give them lots of good reasons to move to Curry County. As you see the legislature, the two terms that I worked there, was essentially a split between the majority and the minority, the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, both in the Senate and the House, it's a supermajority. And people like David Brock Smith, they have to really work hard, pull a lot of rabbits out of the hat, to be able to have effective legislation and how to figure out to work with the governor, the other parties. David has been put on some very impressive committees. This lady here is pretty much over to the left. David is moderate to right, and yet they have developed a very effective working relationship, which is my point. How do you build on that? How in the legislative, at the legislative level, do you grow that approach to good, sound government, lawmaking, and bring everybody together? So, yeah, I'm bragging on David a little bit here, but he has been effective. I think he's just a tremendous legislative person. This is my favorite. I wish I could get it a little bit bigger, but to recognize Oregon, why we live out of the metropolitan areas, why we live on farms, ranches, riverbanks. It doesn't make us better, doesn't make the metro people better, just makes us different in our personal preferences, how we want to raise our families, how we want to grow old, how we want to work in our communities. And so if anybody out there is listening and has some good input on how we can pull these two groups together, we are all ears, especially in Curry County. We have the most rugged coastline in the western United States, the most unique geological, the most unique environmental contrast anywhere with the ocean, the mountains, the rivers, the fish. I often use the analogy of Jedediah Smith when he come through here 20 years after the Lewis and Clark expedition. He found these unbelievably pristine rivers, incredible watersheds, huge trees, and tremendous fish. And so just a little reference to history there. Any questions, Board? Anything you want to add, certainly?
I have something off the wall, actually, on that picture right there, for many of you that may have remembered a guy named Larry Mullers, who lived here his entire life.
Oh, my goodness.
At about
yeah.
74 years old, I have a picture of him going to a rodeo and riding a bull, and he is stretched out just like that at 74 years old, and he did the 8 seconds. At 74 years old.
He was a tree faller until he was 69.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful that you just referenced him. He's a great historical representative of Curry County. Thank you on that. If you ever have a chance to look at this picture, just look at some of the, a little bit closer, some of the expressions of the people in that photo. It's amazing. And this guy, he couldn't possibly lean back any further, I don't think. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
All right. Next, moving on to the consent agenda. A, minutes, business meeting May 20th, 2020. B, CCPT-SD, Curry County Public Transit Service District, accept Curry Public Transit Grant Number 34221. C, reclassification of an employee, K. Alexander. D, new job description, facilities maintenance worker, custodian. And E, job description, public health emergency preparedness coordinator. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Do I have a second?
Second with discussion.
Further discussion, go ahead.
Just quickly, Mr. Chair, these minutes have been kept up to date, and this is the first time in the 3.5, whatever years I've been here, that we haven't been behind, and that's just a tribute to Staff Jesuit. And, you know, none of us look over his shoulder to look and see how he's doing. We just read, and very well done. Thank you, John. That's all I have.
All right. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Aye.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, 7, we have discussion items. Board approval on Dyer Partnership Task Order 17A, not to exceed $30,240 for Cedar Creek Culvert Replacement Project at McKinnon Drive. Mr. Christensen. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes, Road Department is seeking board approval for the McKinnon Fish Pipe Project. This project exceeded its original scope due to permitting requirements with fish passage, and it went from like a $60,000 project to a $500,000 project. And so we're looking to have Dyer help us with inspections on that project and some further engineering. Actually, the engineering's all done. They're doing, reviewing all the submittals. The project's breaking ground here August 3rd, and substantial completion will be first week of October. And so we're looking at, you know, no more than $30,000, and FEMA will pay 75% of this cost.
Okay. Have a motion?
I move that we approve the order that Mr. Christensen just presented.
Second, Chair Pash.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Aye.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
7B, to discuss board approval for 2020 STP Fund Agreement number 34333 to exchange $288,000 in federal funds for $271,000 in state funds for North County paving projects. Mr. Christensen.
The road department would like to put this year's allotment of federal funds into our North County paving projects to help offset that cost. And it was actually part of our revenue plan for this year in our approved budget. And the surface transportation program, it allows us to take federal funds and exchange them into state funds, and we pay 6% for that. But that gets rid of all the federal oversight on those funds and allows the road department to manage the project under state guidelines, which is a lot more cost effective.
Have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair, on the SDP fund agreement, number 34333.
Second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
To go back to 7A real quick, Mr. Christensen, is that the bridge you showed me in Langlois?
No,
Your Langlois?
this is the culvert that's under McKinnon Road that failed during a February storm event in 2019. A big tree pulled the
okay.
culvert out of the ground.
Right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
C, to consider 2 camp hosts at Boyce Cope County Park, implement emergency rules to reduce spread of COVID-19. Mr. DeRock and Ms. Schmelzer.
I'll start the conversation on this one. So shortly after the Memorial Day weekend, I had reached out to whoever had reservations in the park, in Boyce Cope County Park. And I heard a lot of concerns that we weren't doing enough for social distancing. People didn't feel we were cleaning enough. You know, we had went up there, we did special cleaning measures. We were trying to keep people social distance. But some people actually left the park because of that. So we're losing money because of that. So we want to make sure we have something more concrete that requires us to do a little bit more up there so people know that they're safe. We also had an incident where somebody did some vandalism, I guess is the best way to put it, up there, and we're concerned about, body fluids and...
Is that in the restroom that I heard about?
Yes, there was some stuff done in the restrooms on more than one occasion, and so there becomes that whole safety concern again. So I think we need to do more to demand more COVID compliance up there. Also, we want to make sure that we're doing tracing up there. There's a lot of people coming and going in the park, so we want to do some tracing to make sure we can keep track of who's ever coming in the park and out of the park in case we have to do contact tracing up there as well. So the order talks about that. And then the other part of it was, and Mr. DeRock can talk a little bit more about this, but he had the idea of why don't we put 2 camp hosts up at these parks so that you can give them relief so that they're not so stressed out, because right now the camp hosts are pretty much prisoners at the park. They get, I think it's a 4-hour break or something. Tony knows anyway, so the idea is to put 2 camp hosts at a park and not pay them the stipend, so that saves money right there. And when Tony approached me about it, I said to him, my big concern is, are we going to be taking up park space that could be rented out? So he went through all the numbers for the last couple of years, and the peak season, or the peak month, is July. That's our busiest month in the park, and it was never at 100% capacity. So having a second camp host there isn't going to be taking a site that could be potential revenue, and by not having a stipend, it would actually be saving money on that. It would also allow another camp host up there to help keep up on the cleaning that we feel we need to be doing up there. Mr. DeRock has been making a lot of changes up there. He's, changing the internet up there. He's doing more with the garbage. He's trying to implement a small store up there. He's not quite there yet. We've got more work to do on that. But overall, just thinks having another camp host up there is going to help better keep more eyes on the park, help with the cleaning, and might actually keep camp hosts around longer, and also will help hopefully keep the campers happier where they have, if there's not camp hosts there, they don't have to wait for them to get back. They can go to the other camp host now. So thought was, let's try it and see how it works. And if it works throughout this COVID emergency and we can get through this camping season, come back to the board. If it works, come back to the board and try and make that permanent for some of the parks.
Okay. Mr. DeRock?
She pretty much laid it all out, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. Anthony DeRock, Parks Coordinator for Prairie County. I believe the park would be a better place for the host, the experience for the host, and for the guests, so they can mitigate the work and duties amongst each other in order to have some time off. As of right now, like she mentioned, they technically don't really have any time off. Park never closes, and as she mentioned, that can feel like jail to some people. And it is, Boyce Cove is quite a busy park. And with the other state parks being closed, with us already being a busy park, it's quite full. But as she mentioned, us utilizing that other spot where the numbers were pulled from those particular sites, not just from the grounds overall. So they're more realistic numbers. All verify and show that we will not be losing any revenue. I think it'll be quite beneficial for the guests and the host to make a better experience for everybody.
Question, real quick, if I could. I hope we have a good pressure washer up there because some of the stories I heard were pretty bad. Were you going to designate or delegate responsibilities to either or they'll both have the same responsibilities? I could see maybe a little bit of a struggle.
We're in the process of working through those scenarios at the moment. We could potentially have them working together on a daily basis where one camp host is, like you had briefly mentioned, might just deal with, say, the facilities, restrooms, showers, trash. Others might deal with calls, voicemails, reservation system, and firewood, split up the grounds maintenance. There's actually quite a bit to be done.
I would maybe suggest that you probably try and do them equally because if it's seen as playing favorites, then it might cause you a rub.
Yeah,
so.
no, my plan is to get them to work together and share the duties and alternate and also have the ability to take the time off. And they share the amount of time they're allowed to take off as well.
Okay.
And I believe, with things that have happened in the past, having two could be beneficial all across the board, but if one does decide to leave, there's one still there, so we're still covered in said situation.
Great.
I did.
Commissioner Boyce was up first.
Okay.
I was just going to say, so Tony and I did talk about that because I said, why don't we, because, sometimes the applicants, some of the applicants aren't very computer savvy. And you really have to be good with technology to run the reservation system. So I said, well, maybe the ones that aren't, maybe they could just do the cleaning. And he's like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose because then if somebody shows up at the park, they can't check them in. So we did talk about maybe breaking apart the responsibilities, and he convinced me, and I agree. It makes sense that they have equal responsibility.
Commissioner Boyce?
I was just going to add, Mr. Chair, perhaps you already thought of this, but I think with the authority you would have there, you're going to need to really be pretty rigid on the scheduling. Who's leaving the park when, and like I say, I thought you probably already thought of that, but I believe that's going to be a pretty critical part in that scheduling. But I think it's a great idea, and my personal opinion is, even if it did take one camp spot, I think in the long term it's going to more than pay for itself, just in less hassle, less worry for you even. That backup is huge.
Well,
Service to the community.
yeah, it also allows the park to get more attention, and it allows the guests to get more attention as well. It allows the grounds to potentially be in the best condition they've ever been if it all works out well. We'll have basically double the staff tending to the property and the guests. So, the guests can be, need some attention,
I understand.
to say the least. But with the two hosts on site, they should be able to deal with it accordingly, no problem, instead of having the burden just on one host.
Okay, Commissioner Gold?
I just was wondering about the sites for the hosts. Do you have kind of prime sites there in the park?
Yes.
And so you're not going to be putting them in the prime sites, I would hope?
No, currently it's designed so when you come into the park, the very first site that you approach just after the stop sign is usually almost always designed in any campsite facility to be the camp host. So there's no question of who or where is said camp host. And I intend on putting the secondary camp host at the last spot.
Good.
So it'll
I
be
was
the
just gonna
first
ask
and
that
the
question.
last. And also with the last, they'll be able to keep an eye on other parts of the facilities
I'm sure they will.
and the dump station as well,
Mhm.
which is used quite frequently. I believe the secondary camp host would have a better opportunity to see who and when is using said dump site, because the initial first camp host is located on the other side of the property, where the secondary would be closer to the dump site.
I think that's a great idea.
Counsel?
Thank you. So there has been some discussion on the order and about adding the camp host for the camping season. This is COVID-related, and there's the other element of rulemaking on social distancing and not allowing visitors unless they're registered. What we added to this as well under your health rule enforcement powers is that if there are violators, they could be either trespassed or cited for violation of the health-related social distancing orders. So we're trying to do a prevention with the addition of the staff, and then enforcement with the addition of the citation abilities.
Can I make another suggestion to you? If and when we do seat 2 camp hosts up there, each camp host has a reciprocating sign or note on their property saying, if I'm not here, go to space XX, and that's the other camp host.
Yes.
Something like that, so you have that correspondence between the two.
Yeah, my current camp host, they have a sign outside of their unit that has their names on it. They're in the camp host spot. I've actually been implementing other similar things, like you said, signage, in regards to the wood. We do sell bundles of wood out there. I've come out with the idea of having a sign-up sheet. All the campers can, write, it'll have their site number on there. They check that they want a bundle or 2. At a certain time in the day, the camp host collects that piece of paper, goes and distributes the wood, collects the money, and then there's actually more traceability with the wood as well.
And the camp host isn't continually bothered for wood.
Yeah, exactly, because you would be surprised how late they might get bangs on their camper, in regards to multiple things. So once again, I think with 2 camp hosts could potentially help with said situation. But yes, they will definitely be signage regarding camp host, and if and when and how we decide who's on and who's off, and it will be balanced, it will be equal, there will be signage of saying when who's on and who's off. It'll be,
Perfect.
It'll be set.
Thank you. Anything further?
I just was going to say I appreciate your organizing this situation, because it's been kind of hard for you to go into that.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the ability for Boys Cove Park to have 2 camp hosts, along with the COVID-related ordinance associated.
Second action item, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion?
Just a clarification. So the order is written that the 2 camp hosts are just for this camping season, so we can see how it goes and then come back and make that permanent if it goes well.
Good.
Okay?
Great.
Roll, please.
Mr. Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. DeRock, good work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, moving on to 8, our director's report.
I think are we going to do Commissioner Boyce's letter?
Why don't we do that? Yes,
We
why
didn't
don't
actually schedule it in, did we?
we didn't.
Would you
We
like me
just
to read
kinda
it
said,
to
let's
you,
do it.
or-
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I can go fast here, Mr. Chair. July 17th, regarding request for review of future restrictions by health region. Let me add something to that real quick. I think this is going to be changed, so the board needs to be aware of this. One of the commissioners asked if we could change that, rather than say the health region, make it just the 5-county region, because the health region actually includes Lane County, and their numbers are not down like the 5 counties. So I'd like you to anticipate that change, and then I'll read the letter but I think they're basically just going to change 2 or 3 words. And I'm assuming all the commissioners of the 5, again, that is Morgan from Josephine County, Cribbins from Coos County, Roberts from Jackson County, Boyce Douglas, Boyce Curry. Okay, Governor Brown, we appreciate the efforts that the state of Oregon and her citizens have made to control, this is written by Commissioner Cribbins, by the way, control the spread of COVID-19. We are pleased to report that in Health Region 3 and 5, those efforts have been largely successful. When we initially closed our counties in March of 2020, we were confident that the measures we were creating would allow us to slow the spread of this disease. We closed our businesses, schools, and public spaces in order to allow our hospitals to prepare and not be overwhelmed, get our PPE supply chains in order, and get contact tracers on board. All those measures are in place, and our counties are all in phase 2 of reopening. Our citizens are largely wearing masks, washing their hands, and engaging in social distancing. The most vulnerable citizens have supports in place to deliver food, medication, and other essentials. We have procured facilities in order to shelter those that are unable to quarantine in their current location. We have met all of the goals that we set back in March, and in most cases have exceeded those goals. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed. In fact, Coos County has only 1 hospitalized patient, and Douglas County has had, I'm adding one word there, has had none, and that would be to the 17th day. Based on the successes of the strategies we have employed, as well as all the data discussed above, we would respectfully request that any additional restriction would be determined by, instead of health region, probably will be the region 3 and 5, and metrics in each region. And this is something we've really been promoting, that every county really needs to be handled and assessed separately at some point, maybe not. This is truly a situation where one size does not fit all, and our citizens and businesses should not be further restricted when they're doing everything that they have been asked to do to slow the spread. Sincerely, and then same commissioners that I just mentioned a minute ago, Mr. Chair, the 5.
I have no objection signing it as long as you give a full rereading once the final words are fixed.
Absolutely.
Make sure there's nothing that's inappropriate that's been changed.
I will make sure that Director Schmelzer
I'm
receives
fine with that, too.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director's report, Ms. Schmelzer.
Okay.
Wearing her Green Bay mask. Can you believe that, Oregon? Green Bay mask over here. Go ahead.
Those are Oregon colors. So, just, we started the wage study. We started implementing the new wage scale. 2 of the unions have not implemented it yet, or they haven't approved the contracts on that, which we'll talk about. But I just want to say that as part of that, we're requiring the personnel evaluations, and that has been going really well. I talked to Julie today, Julie Swift in HR, and she's been getting quite a few of them. People are turning them in. So, and the ones I've read, I've actually been really pleasant with how they are, as Rich from Rhodes says, evaluation should always be constructive instead of destructive. And they've actually been very fair, and they've been, I think, something the employees have been looking for. So that has been going really well. The second COVID reimbursement request is due this week, so I got that submitted. And this reimbursement is for about $100,000 is what we would be getting on that one. I do want to mention that a while ago we signed a contract with, we agreed to sign a contract with Moss Adams for the auditing services. They had some issues with the contract, and so it was never brought back to the board for signature. So I just want to go through what those changes were so we can get that signed real quick. I mean, you've already agreed to it. You've already approved it once, but Moss Adams had some things. They just wanted to make sure the statement of work was added to the contract. They wanted to make sure that somebody was assigned as the financial contact. They put a timeline in there. They didn't want it open-ended. They wanted a timeline.
Who is the financial contact going to be?
It says the director of operations or their designee.
Okay.
So it doesn't say it by name. It didn't have a timeline in there, so we discussed, would it be done by December with final report to the board by whatever. So we put that in there, and it was something we both agreed upon. And then the contract had a section called internal use of third parties, and they pointed out that that's not applicable in audit work. So Council Huddle did review the contract. He just said, wanted to make sure we addressed the financial contact, the timeline. We worked all that out, so I'll be circulating that for re-signature on that, so we can get that in the mail to them. Real quick on the Director of Operations applications. We've received one application. We've received several resumes that were submitted through Indeed, and Julie Swift has gotten back to them and said, thank you, but you need to submit an application. Some of them are actually pretty good, so I think we'll see what we get. Then I just wanted to make a comment on the workshop today. We were having problems with the video on it. We have issues because we don't have enough bandwidth. So when we're trying to make it live on Facebook, make it on YouTube, plus having it on the channel, we run into issues. So Rand and I talked, and what she's going to do is run the tape on Facebook and probably run the tape on YouTube until we can get enough bandwidth. So, yeah.
So maybe we could just stop trying to do it live and frustrate people and just let the public know that, hey, it's not working. It's available a day later or whatever, 24 hours.
She's going to do the, what we talked about was doing it live on channel 182, but then immediately after the meeting, uploading it to YouTube and Facebook.
So there's no issues with 182?
Right, it's just when you're doing all three, you're trying to go live on all three, there's just not enough.
Kind of like running 3 computers off the same hotspot. It slows it down.
Yeah, it's just not working.
So the plan is to immediately after the meeting, upload it to YouTube and Facebook,
Yes.
and then you'll run it. That's
Yep,
fine.
That's what she's going to do. In the meantime, she's exploring how to increase the bandwidth.
Good.
So, and that's all I have right now.
All right. I have some good news for the county. Through this board's hard work and constant badgering of Washington, we are starting to get some movement. Again, we are to have, hopefully, Secretary of the Interior here in the fall, August or September, along with maybe Sonny Perdue will get on a plane with him, Mr. Williams and some other people from Washington, and probably a couple of congressmen to look at our river. And Commissioner Boyce has agreed to take them on a ride up the river and show them the problems. We received this morning from Congressman DeFazio's office an urgent release. I'll briefly read this to you. Congressman DeFazio urges the Army Corps of Engineers to prepare for emergency plans for Gold Beach Shoaling Project. Representative DeFazio, Chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Tuesday sent a letter to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers urging preparation for an emergency contingency plan at the Port of Gold Beach, which was threatened by severe shoaling. Shoaling is a navigational channel at the port, and it threatens the fundamental way of life in southwestern Oregon, he said in a letter. I am gravely concerned that not dredging the channel or a marina entrance will create a serious public safety risk at the Port of Gold Beach and endanger the economic benefits of the port and what it brings to the community. And he goes on to talk about how and where he's going to do this. We are hopeful, and I have a commitment from the Corps of Engineers from about a week ago saying that they do believe they have funding next spring after the storms to take on the south side of the river from the mouth of the river all the way to the bridge, that gravel bar, that huge gravel bar that follows the whole south side of the river, including the mouth to the port, will all be removed in the spring. But we are also looking to have Secretary Bernhardt and the Corps of Engineers look at, Mr. Boyce shows them where we're talking about, up to Elephant Rock, to have the river, as the engineers have said in the past year, put the river back in its socket and move that channel back over and dredge it down to about a 13-foot depth through there to exhaust the river gravel in the wintertime. So those are some really good things that we're working on here.
Question?
Yes, sir?
You suppose Barnhart called Congressman DeFazio or the other way around?
Well, I want to say when I was with Jack Parnell at his ranch, he looked at me and he said, would you like me to call Secretary Barnhart right now? He said, he's a dear friend, I'll call him right now. And I said, no, sir, don't do that. He said, well, I'll get to it in the next week or so. I'm wondering if Mr. Parnell didn't give a call, and he's also said, he was dear friends with Sonny Perdue. to Washington and say, hey, you guys, could you look at this Rogue River thing? Because it's not a little creek in the middle of the desert. This is arguably the greatest sporting river in the nation. So maybe we're going to get some things done finally. So it's a nice
excellent.
thing.
Excellent
And
work.
that's my report.
I'm next. You want to take notes?
JJ does.
Crewman's letter done. I'll give a report next week so we can close this meeting down, but we've had the last of the timber salvage in the Chuckle Bar fire that has been bid on and purchased. And so that, after 3 years, that is just incredible news. I didn't think it was going to go. I didn't think the value would be there from what I know about it. But I'd like to give a quick report next week. It's just less waste. You know, it's not more than, 10% or so, but anyway, thank you. No new fires. Happy to report we remain at moderate level. This is not the hottest summer, so we just got to kind of get through August, and but I think that's looking pretty good. Still to this day, this point in time, we only lost 11 acres in Curry County. And of course, we're all hoping that it stays limited precisely to that. The 6 counties I talked about last week on the COVID positive cases, we are sitting at all combined, 674. So that's up almost 100 from 1 week ago, which is part of the governor's response in saying, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. I'm not saying I agree, disagree. I wouldn't want her job. And at least we're not talking about another lockdown. And as you know, Mr. Chair, some of the other counties are saying we may not comply with that. They're being careful, they're being responsible, they're being respectful, but they don't want to ask their citizens to do that again. So stay tuned on that. In Oregon, 335, where is the figure yet? 335,000 positive cases, 271 deaths. It seems like just a couple weeks ago it broke the 200 barrier. As you know, when I mentioned on March 19th the tremendous effort and creative effort from Douglas County on the drive-up testing. Well, Curry County is now done about 990 cases. Most of those are drive-up. A few of them are in the emergency room, a few of them in Port Orford at the Curry Family Center, a few of them in Brookings at the Curry Medical Center. And that's just it's really a tribute to our healthcare system, our public health here, because not everybody's been able to develop that drive-up process and approach to, wise testing. So I'm just really proud of what's been done there. I certainly can't take a shred of credit, but it's getting, Curry County altogether has had, I think it's 858 negatives, I'm sorry. We still are sitting at 10 positive cases, no hospitalizations, which we essentially read in the joint 5-county letter. That's all I have today.
Okay.
Thank you, Board.
Commissioner Gold?
Okay, I've got a couple of things. I listened in on Congressman DeFazio's meeting. I guess it was yesterday or the day before, and Congress has passed a bill that will be allocating 20% of the dredging funds to small harbors. Presently, it's 10%. Also, in the bill is a bigger amount or a larger amount of money that is going to be allocated to cities and counties instead of the state, like the COVID money was just sent to the state earlier, and the state was up to dispersing it. And he also mentioned that Congress is proposing $3 trillion and the Senate's $1 trillion. It's good. Printing press is rolling. I also went to a tour this morning for the Curry County Transit Building. Quite frankly, I've got to say they're amazing. They took out a loan for the building, and because they have renters in the building, they are paying a net amount each month on that loan of about $150. I've got to say, Kathy Bernhardt is an amazing manager. So That's my report.
That Bernhardt name must just be a good name, huh?
It is.
I'd like to make another comment I forgot on your comment about the fires. I saw a fire the other day they showed on the evening news. It was a very small 4 or 5 acre fire in Medford or Ashland, I think it was. And they called in a carrier.
They're not messing around, are
Irv
they?
George called in a carrier.
Yeah, they're
and
not
dumped it.
messing around.
I thought that was amazing. They said it was out in a matter of a few hours. They had guys down in there stomping out the ground, and to see a carrier come in and drop retardant on a 5 or 7 acre fire was done. It was great. Merv George, hats off, brother.
On that legislation that Commissioner Gold mentioned, we may want, it hasn't passed yet, but it's very likely to pass. It's moving to the Senate now. We might want to consider a supportive letter on that to improve the odds. That's all.
All right, so, I'm sorry, Counsel?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just earlier today, I forwarded to the board some other legislation, just in case you want to review that and comment on it at another time. But it had to do with state laws to change police arrest abilities.
Oh, yes, I saw
Okay,
that.
thank you. So those type of topics, just if the board wants to at a future time comment or comment to the legislature on that as well.
I have one.
They may not want my comment on that, but I'll just stay on the sidelines for now. Yes, sir.
I don't know why we had a 5 o'clock meeting today, but it was good. But I wondered what the board, for future reference, if, you may comment, not a lot of attendees, but I don't suppose more people are listening in, and if we're not going live, what is the board's feeling on that? I mean, I know we're still committed to Port Orford and Brookings in the evenings, but just
Well,
for
that's, yeah,
discussion.
these were originally designed for the Port Orford and Brookings evening meetings, and one actually here. I mean, if we're not going to have any additional turnout, I don't, because of the COVID for now, I would be in favor of just putting it back on our normal schedule, rather than
For that
having the
also.
evening meetings, and then once COVID's over, we can readdress it again.
But you're not saying, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this is our only evening, when we approved the calendar, I think this is our only evening meeting for Gold Beach left, right, JJ?
There's one more.
Meeting in Gold Beach next month, August 26th. But we're scheduled for Port Orford and Brookings in September and October. And all, again, 5 p.m. in Gold Beach in August.
So cancel.
I think let's forego all of them for now,
Well,
if
well-
that's all right, and then we can relook at it. If COVID lightens up and we can start to get together, we can always change it.
So I want to make sure I understand. You're saying the Port Orford and Brookings meetings, also you want to eliminate those times and dates?
Until we get approval from, yes, Counsel?
I'm nearly positive Port Orford is not even conducting city council meetings at the current time.
Oh, so you're saying their facility may not
Right,
even
that's
be
what I'm saying. I don't think
available?
the facilities are going to be available. So until we get more on this COVID and we start to get less restrictions, the governor lightens up some, and we understand that the cities are going to be open arms to have us again, we need to reopen this discussion. I'd say let's just forego the evening meetings for now, return to our normal schedule, and readdress it when things look better.
I'm okay with that. And I forgot one more important thing, and it has to do with the
One
aggregate.
second. Are you okay with that too, Commissioner Gold?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, fine. Then that's...
I'm 50-50, but I want to go with the board. So on the 3rd and 4th, when we have some scheduled activity that we're all going to need to do, our aggregate study that David Rocksmith got for primarily the road base, but also Chetco, almost $500,000. We're going to retrofit in Coos Bay one of my boats, and I hope to have a really good report and information to give the board at some point there. I don't have a lot of additional information right now, other than I'm just going to have to be gone those 3 days. But I did want the board aware of what we're up to, and
Okay.
wanted to give you the reports.
Counsel?
Thanks. I guess I have some questions on upcoming future meetings. Do we have a meeting scheduled for next week?
I believe we do, yes.
Yes, that's our normal, it would be our normal meeting.
July
No.
29th, fifth Wednesday of the month. We never schedule meetings for the fifth
Oh,
Wednesday.
that's
What's
right,
the
it's the
fifth
fifth.
Wednesday?
That's right, the fifth,
Right.
so no, we
There's
don't.
nothing scheduled as of now to my
Sure,
knowledge.
because
Wednesday.
the 29th, 30th, and 31st, we have the depositions scheduled to take the depositions of the CCH folks. And then the following week, and then Julie Schmelzer, you're going to be gone that week and the next week, coming back the 17th, because the following week, on the 3rd and 4th, Monday and Tuesday, CCH lawyers will be scheduled to take depositions of our folks. So are we going to have a meeting that Wednesday, the 5th or 6th of August?
Yes,
And then
yes.
are you going to prepare that remotely, Julie, or do you have, is it already arranged who's doing all the agenda prep and all those things?
Okay, so when I'm not here for meetings, JJ is really good about it, and JJ will go back and forth with me on email.
Mhm.
And he'll say, what do you think about this, or this came late, what do you think? And we'll go back and forth and get those put together.
Okay.
JJ, in all honesty, JJ can just do it on his own, but we always have a second set of eyes going back and forth on it. So we'll do that. And I do want to just clarify something, though. When you said no evening meetings and go back to our regular schedule, you meant, or I don't want to assume, but instead of having that night meeting, it would be at 9 a.m. those days?
Yes. Yes,
Just
back
to
to the
double check.
normal 9 a.m. schedule, yes.
Okay, good. Thanks. I just wanted some clarity for the next couple weeks coming up. They're going to be awful busy.
Okay. Anything further? All right, with that, we are going to recess this meeting and go into executive session. And upon coming out of executive session, we will re-adjourn, or we will bring this meeting back. We're in recess. All right, JJ, just relax. We are coming back into session. Standing by for JJ to get the recorder working.
JJ, that's a lovely blouse.
All right, we are back in session from our executive session. Staff is to proceed as directed from executive session. It is again July 22nd at 7:07 p.m. Moving on to number 11, new hire youth litter patrol program.
Okay, so what happened is we did have some youths that were hired for the litter patrol program. One of them got a job elsewhere, so we had to do a new appointment. So this is what this is for. This is a juvenile, that's why there are no names in the packet.
All right, so we don't need a motion or anything on that?
Yes, you do.
We do, okay.
So moved, Mr. Chair, for the new hire order.
All right,
I'll second that.
further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash,
All right,
motion carried unanimously.
with that, I would like to thank everyone for their service today, and JJ did a great job, brother. Nothing further? Meeting is adjourned.